Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I have a wonderful guest. This is Russell Knight, and he is a divorce attorney in Illinois and Florida. Thank you so much, Russell, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So, as you know, I am divorced and remarried. Everybody who listens knows that. And you, Russell, are also have personal experience with divorce, correct? In addition to your professional experience.
Yes, I've been divorced. I'm a divorce lawyer, and I like to say that being a divorce lawyer is like hanging out in a barber shop. Sooner or later, you're going to get a haircut.
That's pretty funny, but my occupation is probably the same. That a lot of us get divorced, by the way, because every day you're talking about compatibility, priorities, values. You're dealing with people that, have relationship issues. You're trying to understand yourself better, and your spouse isn't possibly doing that. So, it amplifies any pre-existing problems. So, anywho, Avi, he says, Russell here told me he's Captain Divorce. He knows everything about divorce. So I want to get into some of the common questions that people ask me about divorce, and then we could just kind of see where the conversation goes. So the first thing that I wanted to touch on, and we could go any direction, Russell, is these guys all over my internet comments that tell me that they are just going to get completely destroyed by divorce because their ex is going to get like 100% or 75% of everything. They're going to be living under a bridge because they're going to be yoked to lifetime alimony for the rest of their lives plus child support. And they just cannot get out of a difficult marriage because of financial reasons. What are your
Well,
thoughts?
that is common, and it's unfortunate to imagine yourself trapped in a relationship for reasons, especially financial. When I tell people you can always make more money, but some people have very different emotions about money. The truth of the matter is that when you get divorced, the courts operate in different systems, and I have operate in two, Florida and Illinois. But for
Hmm.
example, Illinois divides assets up equitably, which is usually 50-50 if both people are working. But if, yeah, it's true. If a woman is a housewife and you're not making a lot of money, the judge probably is going to award her most of the estate because they're like, well, she needs something to live off of. And then in Illinois, maintenance, which we used to call alimony, gets set based on a formula of 33% of your net minus 25% of her net. It's usually not a ton of money unless you're really wealthy. And then if you're really wealthy, what's the big
Then who
problem?
cares, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then in Florida, it's the opposite. It's a mandatory 50-50 split. They don't care who you are, what your situation is. They're going to divide stuff up 50-50. And then alimony is done based on the needs of the party. So if you have, let's say, a very thrifty spouse, you might not pay anything because she simply doesn't spend the money. And if she does
Yeah.
spend all your money, they're going to look at your income and say, well, he makes 100, it cost him 90 to live, then there's only 10 left to give to her. So they really don't leave you holding the bag, so to speak.
Yeah, I
And my
don't see
experience,
that.
yeah, my experience is that after, first divorce is terrible. I don't want to minimize it, but after 5 years, people are like, "What divorce?" They literally do not remember their divorce lawyers' names because I'll ask, "Oh, who's your lawyer?" They don't know.
Yeah, I mean, also, obviously, the most contentious cases are the ones that are going to go to court. The average person doesn't like have some sort of cinematic, like two lawyer Kramer versus Kramer situation. Like I mean, I didn't, I mean, I would imagine you didn't if you're an actual lawyer, but the majority of people do not have like massively contentious battles. And when they do, there's some kind of personality disorders involved, usually from my perspective.
Oh yeah, they're out there, without a doubt. So the
Yeah.
average person, it's an exercise in accounting. And if you really love your kids, it's an exercise in scheduling. Like you want the other parent to be around the kids. So how are you going to
Yeah.
accommodate your schedule? How are they going to accommodate their schedule? It's that simple. But the world is not full of average people. There are many people with severe personality disorders that are undiagnosed, and they do not go quietly into the night. They need to have a battle, and they need to say their piece in front of a judge. And when I encounter those people, I give them exactly what they want as soon as possible. It's the only way to rip off that Band-Aid.
Yeah. And so, do you see more increasingly some women have to give spousal support, right? Because we are
Yeah,
getting more, making more and more money, women.
they really hate it. I'll tell you that.
I read that some of the change in the laws is spearheaded by the women who are being asked to pay alimony.
That might be true because they just changed the alimony laws in Florida,
Yeah.
and and that was one of uh the pressure points because if I guess it wouldn't be uncharitable to say that like we can imagine it's easy to imagine a woman who stayed at home and supported kids, and it's just as easy to imagine a guy who sat on the couch for 20 years until she got fed up.
Yeah, I
Although
mean,
those are two different animals.
yeah, it's always two different, I mean, people each think that they're the right kind of animal there, you know? I mean, when you talk to them on one side, they think they did everything, the other person thinks they did nothing. But the whole spousal support thing is so much less, I think, than people think. It's like 10% of cases or what? What would you
Um,
say?
well, in Illinois, they make it so that you cannot ask for spousal support if you're receiving more than 40% of the total income. So your spouse would have
Okay.
to make 150% more than you would. And the spousal support you'd be awarded can never mean that your income plus the spousal support you get is over 40% of the total. So
Oh,
most people marry people that are approximately similar to them and have
yeah.
similar jobs. Like let's cops marry nurses, that's just the way it is. And they make the same amount of
Yeah.
money usually.
Or
And
teachers.
yeah, exactly. And so it's usually that's why support doesn't really kick in. And then child support, just a different thing altogether, is based on how much time you spend with the child. So it sort of incentivizes both parents to get as much time with the children as possible because that way it minimizes child support obligations.
Yeah. Which sucks, obviously, that would need to happen to incentivize things, you know. But, it is what it is. So, how has the landscape of divorce, how long have you been a divorce lawyer?
19 years.
Oh, wow. So then how have things shifted in that period? Any trends you notice?
Yeah, men aren't divorce lawyers anymore, is one thing I've found. So
Mhm.
it's a very female centric practice, which has been for the best because it's very contentious and that a lot of times my female colleagues are very good at being a hand holder in some situations and instead of seeing the world in black and white, which men tend to do. So I think because of that, divorce has become overall less a black and white thing where judges and lawyers just lean into black and white rules and formulas. And now we have a lot of fresher attorneys saying, you know what, there's more involved here. This is really three-dimensional. Let's make sure that mom gets this special weekend because it's important to her and her family instead of following some rigid rule just for the sake of the rule. So that is how I have seen changes, that it's become more flexible in my 19 years.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, we are all female pretty much. I mean, I'm a psychologist, but therapists overall, are increasingly, I mean, it's almost a completely female occupation. So I would guess that, it's similar reasons. People who get into it because they want to help, it happened to them, or like they had a difficult family and they want to make sure it never happens the way that divorce went down for them,
Mhm.
you know.
Well, women care. They're very nice.
Well, I think so. But but so when the guy says, or what about the people staying together for adult children? I find that to be so tragic to be staying together. I mean, people could do whatever they want, but
Mhm.
then they're staying together, this whole cheaper to keep her thing that they think. But I think that that's bullshit. I think it's just inertia. Your kids are out of the house. You literally don't want to live in a smaller house. You don't think you would do that well on the dating market. You like your golf club membership. And so people just stay and
You
they
know,
bitch and moan and they
yeah,
complain.
I'm on the last step of the divorce decision-making process, so I am really not privy to a lot of the reasons why people get divorced. For example, in my 19 years, I don't think anyone has confessed to me that they had an affair, and that's why they got a divorce. Believe it or
For
not.
real?
I'm positive it's happened dozens and dozens of times. But like I don't need to know. It doesn't affect things. And the same time, when someone comes in and they're like, let's say they're 57 and they're getting divorced, and it's like, oh, it's finally time. It is rare when someone lays it all out to me. They've already made the decision. Calling me was the last and hardest step. They don't need an additional push to validate their decision.
Yeah, for me, it's beginning of the well, no, it's still at the beginning. I mean, people come to therapists way too late in the process, obviously,
Hmm.
because we can't do anything after a certain point. I mean, they've frequently called you. Like you think that like you're last, sometimes we're after you. And people will tell me privately, and they're individuals, they're sitting there with me, having consulted with you, or somebody like you.
Hmm.
It's kind of like, what am I going to do after you already like broke it out there and they know how many assets? I mean, they're just not in the headspace for reconciliation.
No, headspace is a good word for it. It's a very confusing and painful time for people. And I don't think my job is to make it less uncomfortable so much as just to get it over with.
Yeah. What about like post-nups, prenups and
Oh,
post-nups?
oh, this is a prenup and a postnup. A postnup is the silver lining of divorces and bad relationships. I have done so many prenups, and then the people get divorced because, like, well, it happens. Postnups, the people do not get divorced afterwards.
Really?
I don't get a call back 3 or 4 years later saying, "Oh, we entered into this postnup." It usually solves the problem that was existing, which is very often it is the woman having no control over her finances, and she finally says, like, enough's enough. I don't even know what's going on with you or what's happening. I need to know what's going to happen if, in fact, we get divorced. And the postnup requires a certain amount of disclosure of who's going to get what, and that seems to quell that issue. Also, people
Wow.
can put into postnups issues that were problematic. Like, for example, you can put in that there's a penalty if there's adultery in a postnup.
Wow.
And I mean, good luck proving it, but at least it's on paper. And then maybe that problem is a lot less likely to occur if there's going to be a penalty for it. But prenups are more and more common and often facilitated by the parent of one of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
parties. Yeah.
Yeah, because people are getting married, this whole kidult thing. I mean, people are like, when they're 35, they're acting like they used to act when they were 25, when their parents are still involved. I see parents with a lot of reach and they're still supporting kids later and later. And so then they say, if you want access to my money, you have to have a prenup. And so the adult child is just like, okay. And then they could blame the parent. And then the person may say yes.
That rings very true to me. Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
And so with the post-nup, though, I would imagine that couples that can get into a lawyer's office to discuss that are already people who are able to kind of solve problems or respect each other or think that the marriage is important or, like it's kind of like people who come to me, like if they're already coming to me, they're going to be more into talking about the
Yeah.
relationship. So.
Yeah, I've found them to be very reasonable, and it's usually like one party needs to have all the cards on the table, and I don't blame
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to say, well, at least I know where I stand than facing an abyss of not knowing.
Do you see a lot of cases where somebody has been hiding extensive
Yeah,
other accounts? Yeah, that's kind
all
of
the
par
time.
for the
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. Um, people people live these double lives. People that have or own a business, they have no idea what they make. The money's coming in, money's going out. To their friends and whoever, they act like they're a big baller and they're spending money and they have tons of money. And then when a
Hmm.
divorce suddenly comes around, they suddenly don't make any money. And the
Yeah.
truth is somewhere in between. Um, and it's usually they people who lie about one thing will lie about anything. And so once you find one, there's never one secret account. There's always like 10
Yeah, I would imagine not. And it's also the same people that are going to cheat or going to be financially unfaithful. I mean, it's that same kind of addictive personality. From what I see, if you're
Mhm.
lying in one domain, you're lying like across domains. You're having affairs, you're having secret bank accounts, you don't say where you are, like just a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I
It's
would agree.
that's
I mean, like I said, I don't hear about the other stuff, but I definitely hear about hidden money, and it's usually exemplifies a tragic character flaw. The person cannot be trusted.
Yeah, substance abuse is a big one too. That goes along with that. They're all just linked. It's just like this one kind of person that usually had childhood trauma, which obviously they're not sharing with you, but I'll tell you that's what's happening.
Hmm.
And then they just descend into kind of a web of these intricate lies. And I've seen this happen in my session. People have uncovered affairs. in the session. They like look through the phone and they see something or like some literally. And then there's always all this other stuff happening, like in the background. You know, these are the people who get divorced most frequently. Like people don't get divorced because of nothing, you know?
Yeah. People that get divorced, they keep getting divorced too. That's what I've found. They
Yeah.
they like getting married, they like getting divorced, they like being the center of a drama, and it all plays into them being a victim and being the star of their own little story. And those people are not super pleasant to help, but they marry nice people, and those people are nice to help.
Well, the contentious ones. I mean, like everybody who gets divorced isn't like a dramatic person, obviously, but the ones that you're gonna see that are like these ongoing battles, the ones where I see that they're screaming and yelling and stuff, this is not gonna work out. I always say, like, if people can work on themselves after the divorce, then they have a possibility of really turning it around and getting into a solid, stable relationship. But if they don't work on themselves and they just literally blame the other person and they lay down and play victim and they say it was all the other person, then they are going to replicate that pattern. If you cannot own your own contribution, then the marriages will keep ending.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And you can tell who these people are that are going to be healthy because they will be physically healthy. I tell every one of my male clients, I wouldn't say this to a female client, I'm like, go hit the gym and quit drinking. Like that's the only that's what you should do with your spare time. You don't have your kids on Wednesdays and Tuesdays. I know that. Go to a gym. Stop drinking all the time. And they look better. And the people that are wrapped up in their divorce, the men go gray, they get fat, and they look 2 years, 10 years older. And I wouldn't comment on like a woman doing anything like that, but I've seen it happen the same
But
thing where,
women do the opposite a lot. They be have
yeah,
the glow up.
they have a glow up. Yeah. I mean, I can't talk about it, but like it's nice to see. It's nice to see that they're taking care of themselves in a tough time.
Well, it's the exact opposite. Men frequently, you know, I mean, the woman is the one who says, I can't go to the gym at night because I'm with the kids. But if she doesn't have the kids, she's going to try to throw herself into something productive, you know?
Yeah.
Very frequently, that's the gym, or like there's just this mania that comes upon people when they get divorced. They don't have an appetite. Like a lot of women, the divorce diet, you know, they
Hmm.
just drop a bunch of weight.
Yeah, that happened to me. Um,
Yeah.
it worked.
Well, it's like a huge stressor, like to the
Yeah.
system, the whole organism. It's like, you know, this like massive stress.
Yeah. You just forget to eat because you have a lot going on.
Yeah. So it's, you know, it could go either way. And when people have been in an unhappy marriage for years and that stressor leaves, then it's like the most liberating thing. Have you been seeing increasing rates of gray divorce of women that are just initiating after the husband, after the kids are out, she's in her 50s, etc.?
Well, I have an office in Naples, Florida, and every divorce in Naples, Florida is a great divorce. So tough to, my sample size is kind of unusual. But yeah, it happens. Yeah, there's a lot of, yeah, it really is. The great divorces are usually women are like, enough. I have 15 years left on this planet. I'm not going to
Yeah.
spend it with this guy.
It's true, man. I mean, women didn't used to do it because the laws did not support them and they didn't want to be basically poverty stricken and like and
Hmm.
people used to be more religious. They used to care more what it looks like, you know, it's a sin, all this stuff. And now they're just like, no, that's like the number one thing that I see is that in the older divorce is she's just like, I like cannot deal with him anymore. I don't want to deal with him. I don't care how small my apartment is. I don't care anything. I just want to do what I want. And that's that.
Yeah, that's very a common sentiment. I mean, they are not walking out, people who are not wealthy, to say the least, and the woman will be like, "You can have the house, you can
Yeah.
have that dog, let me live my life. I'm out."
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. It goes a lot with menopause too. I mean, this
Oh
it's like
yeah.
it's a big hormonal change. Estrogen drops. That's the caretaking hormone for women. It starts in the 40s at perimenopause. You just stop wanting to take care of other people. And then if there hasn't been this deep love, you know, then you're like, why am I making meals? Why am I dealing with his shit? Why am I picking up his stuff? We don't have a deep connection. All I've been doing is doing bullshit for him. And now I'm done because I'm too
Mhm.
old and I don't care. And keeping the kids together is a huge motivator. When the kids are out of the house, Most of the women are like, why do I have this house? They go to an apartment, like you just said. They don't want the dog. They don't want the big house. They want to downsize. They want to be in a small place and feel free.
Good for them, because the problem is the sentimental people who want to keep the house, they don't need a big house. They can't afford a big house. They trade away alimony and retirement funds for a big house. And that is invariably a disaster. And the sad truth is, I can't really talk them out of it. We'll be in mediation, and the woman's like, oh, I got my house. This is what I wanted. And I am like, well, good luck to you. I don't know what you're going to do with it in the next 10 years. A lot of rooms and just you.
Why do they want it? That means they win.
I don't know. But like I think that the same thing you're talking about caretaking, I think they've designed and the house has all these memories. They don't want
Yeah.
to wash that away from themselves at this time. But I think it's foolish. But
I
I
think it's very foolish to do anything about literal property, for like more time with kids, for more freedom, for all these things, sure, but like for a piece of property, it's just seems short-sighted at best.
yeah, well, I've learned that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yeah. I see more of the women who are like, I just want to be out. I want to travel. I want to spend time with my kids. I want to do things unfettered. And also, there's like a huge sex drive issue that happens. And I talk about this all the time on my podcast, right? Women don't want to have sex anymore. They hit menopause. They don't really like the guy. So they don't really want to work on it necessarily, if there is anything to work on. So they're in this kind of sexless, loveless marriage. He may bitch and moan about it. And she's like, why? Why am I in this position where he's not happy? I'm not happy. Let's just be done with this charade. And it seems that men are somewhat more sentimental or more romantic. Like we'll be in session and the woman will literally be like, I don't care, have sex elsewhere. And he'll be like, but I don't want to. I want to do it with you. And she's like, well, I don't want to, and so then people end up kind of, I mean, for real.
I believe you. I believe you. I just don't get to hear that side of the story.
Yeah, well,
Um,
it's
yeah.
interesting. You should you should listen to my episodes on great divorce and menopause and all this. This is like the people that you're seeing. They come in, they're like to me, and they're like, I don't get anything from this relationship, pretty much. And I'm willing to quote work on it, but I feel like we haven't been connected in like decades. And I've been powering through for the sake of the children and the family. And now the children are living all over. And by the way, children don't stay close anymore. So this whole thing where you're like
Yeah.
doing things for the grandkids to come over every Sunday for dinner, that's not the generation that we are in. Most people are not doing that, to put it mildly. So then like this like hypothetical client that like gets the big house, in her mind she's fantasizing that like the kids come home and they still have their rooms, and then what? The kids they don't want to come
Yeah.
home, and they go to where they are, and then why do you have this house?
Yeah.
Stupid.
I That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. And so do you see a lot more? Oh, I guess you see a lot more older people then, from what you're saying.
Yeah, people that get divorced when they're young, like in their 30s, like they don't really have anything. So what's the fight about? They have to figure out schedules with kids. That's it.
Hmm.
And then people who do have, and the people who are old, like really old, where they're not working anymore, they fight over every dollar because there's not any more dollars coming in. And
Yeah.
so it's a much more tense situation. And the sweet spot is usually somebody who's at their earning, where both people are at their earning peaks in their like 50 years old maybe. And they're like, yeah, I can still catch up over the next 15 years. This is a hiccup. And those people seem to weather the storm very, very well.
Well, entrepreneurs, like you or me, if you get divorced, you could just work. You don't have to go to the
Yeah,
gym with your extra time. You can also do more work in your extra
that's
time.
right.
And then you
Yeah,
could grow bigger, than ever before. And a lot of these guys have this flat alimony because I see a lot of wealthy people and it's more impetus to out earn it, because they owe her X over the years, but it doesn't go up if they make more money. It's just
that's correct.
X.
It never goes up. Like in theory, it could, but in practicality, it never, ever goes up. It only goes down. She's going to get a job. She's going to get raises, whether it's through inflation or merit. She's going to eventually move in with some guy and not tell you about it. And then you just come in and say, Listen, we have 20 photos of the guy's car parked outside your house. We're canceling alimony. So alimony, you're right, is it is not the bugaboo that is ruining anyone's life. It's designed that you can live with it for both parties, and it's designed to be canceled because no one lives forever, and every single person is going to turn 65 or die, and that alimony is going to get canceled.
Yeah. And then, so wait, alimony is not just, it doesn't just get canceled if you remarry, it's also if you live with somebody?
It depends. In Illinois, it has to be like a de facto marriage. And in
Mm,
Florida, you can marry somebody, but if the new guy is a bum and he's not meeting your needs, your financial needs, then you still have to pay to make that deficit. So it's very frequently, who doesn't want to get a check in the mail? I used to date
right.
a woman who was married to a guy named Ray, and she said, I get a paycheck and a Ray check. And she counted on the check every 2 weeks, and they're not just going to give it up. And so like that's so they will. I represented people who their spouse literally gets an apartment, and then the boyfriend gets the apartment next to hers, and they're like, we're not living together, so they're just to keep the alimony going.
Yeah, that's usually from my experience working with women. They'll be the most vituperative about this if the guy cheated. If he cheated on them, then they're like basically F him forever. I want his alimony for the rest of his life because he's a scumbag, you know? And so,
Mhm.
but if they think that it was just a growing apart situation, I don't see it with as much viciousness to retain the alimony at all costs.
Yeah, I found it's more like it's a balance sheet issue. I say, like, wouldn't you rather have $1 today than the promise of $1 tomorrow? The guy could get hit by a bus. Why don't you take more assets than trying to get more alimony? Because again, if the guy's an
Yeah,
entrepreneur, like you can't garnish my check because I write it out to
yeah,
myself.
yeah. Can't garnish my check either. But but yeah, I guess so. Although people do obviously, as they don't tell you that they cheat, but like these are the most contentious ones I see is the ones where like if especially if he cheated when she had little kids or she was pregnant or something,
Oh
she
boy.
just like hates him. She hates him so much that she will do anything to get anything because she feels that it's better in her pocket. She could give it to the children. She could take care of it. She considers him basically a rat bastard that will never do anything right. And then it turns into this huge battle.
Yeah, I've definitely represented that person several times.
Yeah, and they feel like just any bit that they could take. And and then they get even worse. I've seen that if the person is dating, then the claws come out. So like if the husband is now dating, ongoing, the woman that he cheated with, then the ex-wife is
Oh,
very
that's the
upset.
end. That's the end. If the husband dates or tries to remarry the person who is the
A
was
fair
the affair
partner.
partner, forget it. Like forget having any kind of cordial relationship or co-parenting in the future. It will not happen.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't be like, oh yeah, me and Deirdre are taking the kids this weekend. Can I have an extra day?
Yeah, fuck
Not gonna
Deirdre.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I see that often. So then what is your advice as a divorce lawyer for people who want to kind of retain some sort of or like protect themselves when I know when they're back on the market? Because I get all these people, especially guys, that are like, I'm terrified to remarry because, of all of this in my old marriage.
I don't know. I think that people overestimate the fear of losing something is always greater than the hope of gaining something. It's just human nature. So it's approaching life or approaching a relationship saying like, well, I'm afraid to get married and like all of this. Like marriage is supposed to be a good thing. It's supposed to have somebody that you can rely on and trust. And if your reaction is, I just don't want to go through the divorce again, then maybe you shouldn't even be thinking about getting married. Maybe even a long-term
100%.
relationship might be too much for you right now. So I would suggest that that be the case. But the truth of the matter is, if your money is your money, it's going to stay your money after you get married. This is called premarital assets. And then the money
Yeah.
you earn during the marriage, if you are expect all these big earning years and you're going to be with her, like, well, like, shouldn't she enjoy some of that? Or if you want to keep her as effectively as a paid hanger on, then maybe make the relationship that way. Enter into a prenup and say you're going to get
Yeah.
this. I have done so many prenups where for very wealthy men, and the women will get more money the longer they stay with the man.
I've seen that. That's like the
Yeah.
craziest thing. Why would somebody want to do that? It's like paying somebody to stay with you. It's like a hooker.
Well, yeah, these women are usually from Eastern Europe, if I'm being candid, and they're usually 30 years younger than the guy. And so I think the
Ah,
guy imagines himself
he's already
being,
unethical. It's just,
yeah,
who cares at
yeah.
that point? Yeah.
He's right on the cusp of being a grandpa looking guy. And so he's going to make sure that she's going to try to stay with him
Did you
when,
see that crazy article in the Atlantic about the man who faked his own drowning in the kayak?
no.
Oh, that thing was hysterical for anybody that works with couples or with narcissistic people. And I don't throw that around lightly, but somebody who
Yeah.
fakes their own death in a kayak because then he was going to Russia to meet the girl that he had been talking to on the internet. He let his children think he died. They were going to church, doing vigils, doing memorial services, and he's in Russia. Hold up with her. It was insanity. It's like a very long article. And then the woman at the end, the wife said that she would take him back if he said that he was wrong. I was like, this is from. It was at least the oldest son wouldn't talk to him anymore. Because I mean, but yeah, that's the type that goes off and gets basically a child bride. Hopefully not actually, but
Yeah.
somebody much younger from a different country. And at that point, it is an arrangement. And I guess you do want to protect that asset and make her stay for whatever reason.
Yeah. There's a lot of weirdos out there. I mean, I mostly see like what's the financial aspect of the weird behavior, not the inner life that you're privy to.
Yeah, but they got to be weird when they show up for the prenup, right? I mean, you got to know if like these people love each other, or if she just came from Russia to make a new life. I
They
mean,
these gals are actually seem very nice. They're like, I don't really want, and he goes, I'm not after him for his money. And so I'm like, okay, like I believe you, but we still have to do this. Uh,
yeah.
it's
Well, they
I
know
don't
what
know.
to say. I
Yeah.
mean, how could you be with 30 years old? Come on. But all right. So, I mean, that's everybody's very nice and it's very practical then. And you said the post-nup people are pretty practical. I mean, people that can like reach out and get a lawyer are already more competent than like the average human being who just kind of goes into their finances blindly and just like hoping for the best.
That's absolutely correct.
What about the people that try to keep everything super separate always, like with separate bank accounts and all that? Does that like matter when push comes to shove when they're splitting up?
It doesn't really because well, it does in a bit. Anything that's premarital is will be allocated to the person that had it. So if you have an account, but the problem is if you're putting marital money into the premarital account,
Yes,
we call that
right.
commingling, and then we're like, well, how do we determine it? And the best thing you can do is to say, well, the balance was $10,000 in the day of the wedding. I know that now it's 20,000, so only 10,000 is marital. It still ends up being tricky, or I guess the other policy would be to have you do a prenup and say like I'm going to keep my account separate and we'll do that in perpetuity. Um, I've rarely seen that, but people do it all the time. Where like they never mix accounts, and
I know. There's married couples that Venmo each other for dinner.
that's nuts. Have
I
seen
think
that.
that's nuts
Yeah,
too. But it's the younger people. It's very different now. It's the men do not pay the same way for dates. It's I mean, more women are working, more women are educated. Like it does feel like it is a sea change, you know? I mean, really, it's quite different from when men used to kind of pay and be in charge of the money and all of that, at
well,
least from what I see.
I feel bad for women then these days because that
I
seems like a very disappointing experience.
I think it's a lot better to be in charge of your own stuff. I mean, I still like if the man pays on the first date, obviously. Like I'm in my 40s. How am I not going to like that idea? But for younger women to be like in charge of the money, to be respected as an equal person, to be able to make financial decisions, I always think women should work, because I mean, you lose so much power. I mean, just people, if you're giving somebody time to be an asshole, basically. You're basically saying, like, if a guy is not such a good guy and he makes all the money, then he's going to try to be financially controlling. I see it so much.
That's the truth. I see it in relationships where people aren't even married, and the woman has no recourse. She can get
Yeah.
child support maybe, and if she lives in an expensive community like Naples, good luck because she can't even afford to live after they split up. it's a tough situation. The whole point of the divorce laws is to prevent exactly the type of tragedies that used to happen before they existed, where women would be effectively homeless once the guy
Yeah,
decided she was done with them.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I'm learning all about Jack the Ripper this week on this podcast, and every last one of those women got kicked out of their house and had to live on the streets, and then they got murdered.
Well, that certainly is a sad
Yeah.
sad ending. But yeah, I mean, it used to be that women had to stay married because like these people idealize times like the 50s. Like a lot of men are like, "Oh, that's when it was good." Women there was like you women had no they weren't people. Like they couldn't do anything for themselves. They didn't make as much as men. They couldn't. They didn't have the opportunities. Like if you want to have somebody who's staying with you because they're just scared that they're going to die without you, well, that's not, in my perspective, a love relationship, you know? But people that they don't think of it like that. People talk like it used to be better. Meanwhile, all of the mothers of the women are like, work, get your own account, always save extra money,
Yes.
don't get into my situation.
That's exactly the advice that older women give. And when women contact me who might not have a job, they always seem to have money for a retainer. And they will tell me that they've been saving for it for years. And they bring it up at Thanksgiving, and their sister gives them some money, and then their mom gives them some money, and they inch towards it. So the financial control is never forever and never certain. And most women support other women in not being under that kind of control.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what else can we cover on divorce? Give me some last thoughts about divorce from you.
Okay. Well, divorce, divorce can really be planned for, just like this, I was saying about a woman saving money for it. You can start by identifying the finances that you have, your partner has, the income that's coming in. They should be asking you to sign a tax return. There should be documents associated with that. There's no shame in saying, well, I'd like to take a look at it before I sign something. And while you're signing it, why don't you pull out your phone, take some pictures, and then in the
Yeah.
meantime, with your schedule with your kids, create a little diary. You're the one who picks them up on Mondays. You're the one who picks them up on Tuesdays. Sometimes you pick them up on Wednesdays. You have a little diary. You can identify what you've been doing for the kids, which is 9 times out of 10 what will happen for the kids after the fact. And if you keep track of the money that exists and the money that's coming in, you'll have a good idea of what you'll be entitled to after the fact because it's only hidden things or unknown things. The court doesn't know you. You have to bring the court some kind of evidence to establish what you're entitled to. They will not do the work for you. So if you think divorce is on the horizon, there is no shame in writing down the money that you have and the time that you spend with your children. It will help you, and hopefully you'll just never need it.
Yeah. Yep, that's what I think. I think that women especially need to be prepared and need to understand what's going on with the rent. You know that people say to me that they don't want the wife to see my intake forms because they don't want her to know how much he's paying me for therapy that they're both in, that
They
they're
think that's
both
privileged
in.
communication.
That I'm like, I of course I'm giving her my intake form. She has to sign informed consent. Like what? You know, I've never heard a woman say that, but I've heard many men say it. And every time I say, no, obviously not. She has to know, will you pay? And then I think like, well, gee, why do you think you're coming in? You know, if you're the sort that would hide something like this, like I'm sure that's contributing to the marital issues. But anyway, if anybody wants to reach you, I'm going to link to all of your social media. And you, again, are in Illinois and in Florida. And you know everything about divorce. So that is wonderful. And I assume you're taking new clients.
Always.
Always taking new clients. Well, thank you so much, Russell. And I'll
Thank
talk
you.
to you soon.
Bye
Bye.
bye.